Good evening. I'm sorry it's a bit later than I thought it was going to be this live, by a day and a half actually now. But I'll tell you why. The clinic's having a makeover and we're having all the old graphics taken off the windows because it's actually 6 years since the clinic opened, just about 3 weeks ago. So we're having brand new graphics and a brand new window display. And I thought I'd take the graphics off myself. I've actually just rang them this afternoon saying, how much is it for somebody to just come and do it? You know, it was really difficult. So that's what's been holding me up is the clinic having this lovely makeover as a bit of a birthday present, because 6 years has simply flown by, absolutely flown by. And I've been starting to do more weight loss groups in the clinic because it's such a lovely atmosphere there. And it's actually why I took over the clinic in the first place, was so that I could have a group room, so that we could run small weight loss groups there. And I absolutely loved to do it. I just loved to run the small groups. It was so successful. There were people from those early days who are still very much my cheerleaders, you might say, very involved in my dietless life. Some lovely people still involved with it right from the beginning. So it's nice that it's come full circle and that the clinic is a place that is still busy and still lovely. I've got some gorgeous therapists working there as well, absolutely brilliant therapists, and we started doing new weight loss groups in the clinic as well. All these things come full circle. So what I wanted to talk to you about today, without waffling on anymore about my lovely little clinic, was eating around others and how to stay on track when you're doing that. I think this is probably one of the most popular questions I get asked, or one of the most popular reasons that people say that they find it difficult to maintain a way of eating that's different from other people. So first of all, I would say, when we say eating around others, I mean in a few different kinds of ways. So whether that's other people, say in the evening, eating foods that you want to keep away from, the processed stuff or the sugary foods. So that's probably 50% of it. The temptation, you might say, the temptation from others that are eating your so-called forbidden foods. So there's that side of it. There's also, say, going out to eat at other people's houses and them cooking for you and you having to put in your requests for your own special way of eating, which can often feel difficult to ask for. And then there's, say, eating out with friends. Here, this is quite a big one. Eating out with friends when you usually share a pudding with them, or you have a typical routine going with the kinds of foods that you eat, and now you've decided to change your own eating habits. And of course, also, one of the big ones is cooking for yourself and others at home. So cooking for the family and cooking something different for yourself. So there's all of that. And of course, eating out, just making different choices when you're eating out. It might sound like it's an awful lot to navigate, but actually while I'm talking to you, I'm hearing myself saying in my head, the chances are you've already been doing this forever anyway. If you've already been on a diet of any kind whatsoever, you've already been doing that. So it's not as if it's something that you've never thought of doing before. It might be that you feel nervous about doing something different because people can challenge you on this way of eating. If it's a way of eating that's very different from the usual slimming way of eating, the usual low fat, high carb way of eating particularly, then you might get challenged on that. But actually the chances are, so let's take the first thing, eating a different dinner at night from your family. So the chances are, if you've had any kind of, been on any kind of diet before, you've either gone low fat and roped your poor family into it and they've just had to eat what you've eaten, or you've adapted your meal around their meal, or vice versa. The easiest thing to do, I think, when you're cooking a lower carb, higher fat way of eating and the rest of your family don't, is to make it really simple for yourself, so that you can be cooking their food and yours can be just thrown in the frying pan, thrown in the steamer. This is what I'll tend to do when I get in at night, especially if it's been a long day, or if I want to cook something quickly, which I often do because I'm not really a cordon bleu chef by any means. I don't know if you've noticed that. But I'll come in and cook a couple of pieces of salmon. So I'll throw those in the frying pan. While they're frying, I'll throw some veg in the microwave steamer, cook that for a few minutes, throw that in the frying pan with the salmon, bung a load of grated cheese on the top. Job's a good one. I've got my dinner. So I keep my dinners very simple. So I would say that is, especially when you're first starting out and you're first getting used to eating in this way, this way of eating. So there's either that, cooking yourself something separate and keeping it really, really simple. And like I say, in the early days, I keep your taste as Catholic as possible, really, while you're starting out and you're learning what works for you and what you enjoy, so that you've got 6 or 7 signature meals that are quite simple that you can roll over and you can eat in in succession. So that's so you can either cook something separate, or of course it's quite easy actually to do the lower carb version of your own dinner. So say you were doing a spaghetti bolognese, and that's simple, isn't it? You just not having the spaghetti, but what you do is you have more of the bolognese, so you don't just leave yourself with a tiny little portion of the bolognese that you might have had before with a large portion of spaghetti. You up the bolognese, double what you would have had before, and put loads of grated cheese on the top, so you don't feel like you're missing out. Of course, you've got courgette spaghetti there as well. Your family might find that they quite like courgette spaghetti. If not, you've got that as well. Courgette spaghetti, you can actually eat it raw. That is how easy it is to cook. But you could certainly cook it in a minute or so in the steamer, or indeed, I fry it in butter. Of course I do. So you can adapt your meals to suit yourself when you're cooking a meal for the whole family as well. And I think a lot of meals would fit in like that. So if you were making a chicken salad and chips, clearly just not the chips. And more chicken and more salad. So you're still filling up your plate, but you're filling it up with the good stuff, not with the bloated, carby, stodgy carb side. So that's the first thing, really, I think, is either to keep it simple and cook something separate, or to just have the best bit of the meals that you're cooking with your family. When you're eating out with others, what I would say is, if you're worried that you're going to have a pudding and you really don't want to have a pudding, and maybe you're out with others who usually expect you to share a pudding with them, and they might be a little bit aggrieved if you don't this time, rather than having to explain yourself and tell them and the whole table and the whole restaurant how you're doing this big eating plan now and you're doing a whole new different way of eating and da-da-da-da-da, is simply to say, I'm full, when it gets to pudding. People don't challenge that. Nobody challenges you once you say you're full. They're not going to really wholeheartedly try and force you to have a pudding. If you try and go down there, oh no, don't make me rude, oh I'm doing so well, no I'm eating like this now, then you're setting yourself up for a challenge. If your friends are the kind of people that do like to challenge you. If you've got a problem and you're worried that you might cave in and have the pudding beforehand, then get on to the YouTube channel, search out TFT for sugar cravings. It's on Bridget Hamilton's YouTube channel. Yes, it is Bridget Hamilton's channel. So the TFT for sugar cravings, you'll see my face anyway, and you can tap it away before you go. So if you use that to tap the sugar cravings away, then actually by the time you get there, you'll be fine. You can have a really good starter and a really good main. If you're worried that you're going to order the bloaty carby sides, then you can eat before you go. Ta-da. Don't be starving. Doesn't matter. It's not a waste. It's not a waste if it's not on your waist. It doesn't matter if you leave some. But if you turn up starving to sit down and eat, your ability to make good choices really goes out the window. If you're anything like me, as soon as I'm hungry, that is it. I'll eat anything. So I don't let myself get hungry. It's an insurance policy. It is a very big insurance policy to make sure you're not starving, because you're going to order the most attractive thing on the menu, and it's going to be the most carby thing if you're not careful. So if you are one of those people that once you're starving, that's it, all bets are off. Feed yourself. Feed yourself before you go. The level of self-control that you get out of that is wonderful. It really, really is. And you'll find it very easy to leave food on your plate as well, because you will have eaten the proteins and the fats. It's not like you'll have eaten the stodgy carbs. So that's eating at home, and yes, eating around others. So as I say, others who might be expecting you, maybe in other situations that might try and force chocolates on you, you can easily just say, I'm not at the moment, thanks, I'm good. Without having to explain yourself. As soon as you start to explain yourself, that's when you end up getting challenged. And that's when people want to know more. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I think a lot of the time, until, say, you had dropped a couple of dress sizes on a particular eating plan, then people get interested, really interested, and they want to know more. But until then, people don't really want to know. They really don't. So eating around others at night, at home, when others around you are eating those so-called forbidden foods. Now you're going into a different territory here of feeling as if you're missing out and feeling that either other people are eating the so-called treats that you can't eat anymore. And that's just simply not true. And there are downloads. We have got downloads on the website, and there are a lot of other downloads out there that will help you to let go of that feeling that those foods are somehow your simple pleasure, that's somehow a treat for you, whether it is the sugary products or whether it is the bloaty carbs. There are downloads. There's a free download that you can in fact, I'll put the free weight loss download under this video. I'll put it in the first comment under this video, because actually it's a free download, and it will give you that feeling of knowing that you're not missing out, because actually what you're enjoying instead is all the lovely foods that you can enjoy, all the lovely high protein, high fat foods instead. So if, by all means, if others are eating those foods and grazing around you in the evening, go and get yourself a piece of cheese or some peanut butter. Don't feel like you've got to miss out on eating necessarily in the evening altogether, especially not in the early days when you're first transitioning from one way of eating to another. Make it as gentle on yourself as you can. There's no need to force yourself to feel like you're in that diet mode, which is actually seeing other people eating food that you feel that you're missing out on is that diet mentality. So really helping you to, change this up here. Get help with that, because that is the biggest advantage to you. That's the biggest therapy. Once you feel like you're not missing out and you're enjoying this lovely new way of eating, I'll put the free download underneath, and you can listen to it as much as you like. It will be there as a link to SoundCloud, so it'll be there for as long as you need it to be. Eating around others when you're going out to other people's houses, that can often depend really on how amenable they are, on how happy they are to adapt your meal to suit you. If you are able to ask as well. It's an important thing that you are entitled to ask. You are entitled to ask for your way of eating. You're not being picky. You're not being a nightmare. You're not being fussy. You're just honouring eating in a different way now. You're honouring your body's needs. What I might say with this kind of thing, when you feel that you might find it difficult to ask that other people honour your needs, your eating needs. Number one, if it was your children, if it was your child, say, if you've got children and your little one and they needed to eat in a certain way to have a healthy body, there would be nothing that stopped you. Absolutely nothing. You would not prioritise anything higher in the world than making sure your child got fed in that right way. You absolutely wouldn't. And you'd feel prepared to ask others to make sure that they were in alignment with that as well and in agreement. So as much as you possibly can, you can ask. If you do have family members that are, going to stick their feet in and really not honour that, then, you are entitled to leave what you like on the plate. You really are. And again, don't be hungry by the time you get there. Don't be hungry. Leave the mashed potato on the side. You're grown up now. You can do that now. Nobody's going to make you eat it anymore. Not anymore. They might have done when you were little, but you can actually leave the stodgy stuff on the side. You really, really can. And as I say, if you feel that it might be too tempting for you, then eat before you go. So eating before you go is a big one, whether you're eating out or whether you're eating at friends' houses. If you've got a spouse that does the cooking, and again, they're digging their heels in a little and maybe are taking a little bit of time to get around to you eating in your own way, I recognise it can be a tricky one, because these are family traditions and they're what you do at home, and you don't like to rock the boat. Think about this. Shut your eyes for a second and take yourself forward 10 years in time. 10 years from where you are right now, whatever age you are right now, where you are in 10 years' time, imagine yourself at home. Just for a second. And imagine that you didn't make any changes because you were worried about what other people would react. How do you feel? Now imagine that you did, that you found whatever it takes, the courage, whatever. Yeah, let's say courage. You found the courage to simply ask. And actually what happened was you got your own way, because this is nature. If you ask, you get your own way. If you quietly and firmly insist on honouring your body's needs, because your body is the most vital thing in your world. So imagine that you did, and imagine whatever form that might have taken. So it might be that your spouse or whoever does the cooking for you did become more open to cooking the way that you wanted to eat, or maybe you found a compromise and you were able to cook for yourself. And you actually both found that that worked very well for you. How would you feel if you did make that change? 10 years on, your body will feel so differently. You'll be so used to that, and you'll be so happy with yourself that you did all that time ago ask for your needs. They are your needs. And I often put in this story in the hypnotherapy. When a plane takes off from the airport and the stewards give a safety demonstration, they always say for us to put the mask on ourselves first before we put it on dependents, because our body's needs are the most vital thing that we have. Your body is your little home, and you are no good to anyone if you've not honoured your own needs first. I think it's a Chinese saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So honouring your needs first of all actually allows you to be able to be more available for others. But it is something that you are entitled to do. It's a very basic right. And I think you might recognise that others around you are entitled to honour their needs. So being able to recognise that maybe having to have a difficult conversation now allows you to be able to assert your needs, and it's the most gratifying feeling there is. And then there's no excuse. So, yeah, there are always ways to navigate around this. And in the early days, it can feel a bit difficult because people are getting used to it around you. Not only are you getting used to it, not only are you getting your head around this new way of eating and oh, really, I can eat fat? And are you sure about all of that? And, you're doing your investigating and you're starting to feel what it feels like in your body and you're starting to learn what works for you. In the early days, you're going to navigate around other people's agendas, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes, as it were, but it isn't a mistake whatsoever. You're just learning what's right for you. But if you've gone low carb for a few weeks and you've been eating in a really comfortable way, 3 weeks in, your stomach will have shrunk. So the next time you go out and you end up ordering a big, huge pile of mashed potato and you eat it, you'll know about it afterwards. It will hurt. So you'll have learnt the lesson for next time, We're all a learning curve, aren't we? None of us are done till we're dead. So it is a chance for you to learn what works for you. So basically, as a recap, when you're eating out, the biggest insurance policy that you can take out, if you need to, is to make sure that you're not hungry by the time you sit down. And if you're at all worried about eating the sugar, do your tapping before you go. Make sure that you've already done that tapping. If you do, then your solar plexus will be quiet when it comes to puddings. You're always able to speak up and just speak your truth quietly. I'm not hungry. I'm full. That's always the easiest way. Simple is always best, right? And asserting your needs at home, if necessary. Whether that is because you're the cook and you need to cook something different for yourself, or whether somebody else is the cook and you need to ask them. On the other side of that lies a really, really wonderful feeling. And it's easy to do. It takes a bit of time, but once you get used to it, it just becomes natural, because you realise that there's always been other people around you that are eating in their own way. They always have been. People have got their own appetites, their own likes and their own dislikes. So actually, you are just as entitled to join in with all of that and eat in a way that feels right for you. So just enjoy how that feels to be able to take ownership of your own eating and your own body, and enjoy the experience. I'd really like, if you have any comments, or if you'd like to tell the people watching this video any little tips and tricks that you might have yourself, I'd be really happy to hear them, because I think it is one of those things where we do have a problem with it. We get persuaded by other people, which is fine, but then afterwards we get, I was going to swear then, we get annoyed with ourselves and we wish that we hadn't done. So if you've got any little tricks or any tips around that, I'd be really happy to hear them. Okay, thank you for watching the video and have a lovely Monday.